Përshëndetje motra.
Mirë se keni ardhur në Trime podcast.
I'm Leonarda.
I'm Lejla.
Welcome home. Lejla, how do you feel this week?
I don't know if I have the words. I don't actually know if I have the words to describe
I know.
what we have achieved this week.
Can you imagine me and you in a room with just not the ambassador of Kosovo, but his diplomats?
It was a bit mental, wasn't it?
It was. Well, I think we were shitting ourselves. We were so nervous.
I don't think I slept the night before.
No.
I was like up, like basically pretty
Yeah.
much doing like a presentation. So
Yeah.
I didn't forget what I was going to say.
Yeah.
And then we get there and it was just like so easy. It was just so chilled.
We hung on to our tablets.
For dear life.
For dear life throughout the whole meeting, and we never once looked at it.
If I let go of my tablet right now, my hand's going to be like...
Yeah. It was like a comfort. It was a comfort, but it was so... I think what made me really excited, I guess, to an extent, and really just like surprised is when the ambassador's secretary was like, "Oh, I can't believe I'm meeting two famous people." Like, who?
I know, we were like, who are you talking about?
Who's here? Simon Cowell? Like, who the fuck is here, bruv?
Oh, she was so lovely as well.
Yeah,
she was so lovely.
So nice.
I think it was so nice to go in there and like to be met with just so much like kind words and just really like affirmed us being there on the day. So she was absolutely lovely because we were genuinely quaking in our boots.
Yeah. It was just so many thoughts running through your head, but we got in there and obviously we weren't prepared for the diplomats to be there.
We had no idea that the diplomats were going to be there.
Which I guess it is what it is.
Like
because
the ambassador's, his executive assistant just drops it on us like 2 seconds before we're about to enter the door. She was like, "Oh yeah, by the way, he's invited his two diplomats here to be here to meet you today." We were like,
"What?
Huh?
Come again?
What?"
But
that completely threw us. But we handled it like bosses.
Yeah,
we absolutely. It was an incredible meeting with them.
Yeah.
It was great. You know, the conversation we've spoken about how gender-based violence affects Kosovar women, not just back home but in the diaspora. And it was just such a productive conversation. And it's great to know that they are in full support of what we're doing, especially as we announced our plans in terms of transforming Trime into a non-profit or a charity. I think that was the most important takeaway from that, knowing that we have the Kosovan Embassy on our side for what we are doing. Insane.
100%, especially because, you know, we didn't know if we would even have that support in the first place.
Exactly.
See that, you know, actually, in fact, the ambassador is in full support, but not only that, but also the government back home.
Well, yeah, because we know that VOG is like top of Vjosa's agenda, of the office's agenda to really tackle. And so it's great to know that they're making these connections with the diaspora as well in order to carry out this work. Because you can't do this work alone.
No, of course not.
So it was just, it was mind blowing. Like I went home and I just burst into tears because I had this moment where I was so proud of myself. Yeah. Because being a woman in our community is by no means an easy thing. Just the bare minimum. It's not easy to be, right? Just the everydayness of it. But actually being a woman in our community who is really trying to make a difference in the lives of other women and the wider community feels like it was an impossible task to take on. Yeah. But knowing that the embassy is on our side was like, what?
Yeah, I know.
I know. It was fantastic. I was really, really proud of you, of myself, of Trime, of everything that we've created. And I just had this moment where I went home and I was like, everything that people in our community have tried to make me feel embarrassed about, the fact that I have tattoos, the fact that I'm a feminist, the fact that I'm a lesbian, the fact that I was married to a man outside the culture. And yet here I am.
Exactly.
I was able to achieve everything that I have achieved so far in my career. And now what we're doing with Trime, actually because of those diverse parts of my identity.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Like instead of going against my identity and against who I am, I just embraced the whole thing and look at what we've done.
Exactly. And you are worthy. We are worthy.
We are worthy.
And we have high potential. We've got so much potential. There's nothing on this earth that is going to stop us. And it was just a clear proof that actually me and you know what the hell we're talking about.
Oh my God, absolutely. But we always did. That's the thing. We always did. And it's a shame that in our community sometimes, you know, like, like for people to take you seriously. I find that really like, I just feel it's such a shame that we
ignorant.
have that. It is really ignorant. It's really narrow-minded, because we should listen to women when they're first coming forward and sharing these experiences, and you know, and not just lived experiences of violence and abuse, but women who are scholars, women who are doctors, lawyers, you know, all of these incredible women around the world who are doing really impactful work, in particular in human rights. Why are we not listening to women in the first place? Why do they have to go above and beyond to meet these crazy expectations before the rest of our community takes you seriously?
I think it's this concept and mentality of how women don't know anything. Women's, you know, first of all, women's education isn't really valued as high as it should be. Women's thoughts, women's opinions, you know, what a woman think we should do rather than what a man does. And it's the men's thoughts and decisions always take priority over a woman, and it's because of a value of a woman that's placed on that.
You're so right. I think, like, even you told me once about how you were in a room with like a family member or something.
Yeah. So I had just just engaged. I was early 20s. I was 20 years old. Got engaged, and I was at a family member's house, and I was with my cousin, and a guest came over, and he basically said, "Oh, can you please go into the next room with your cousin, because this conversation is not for you. This is only for Bora." And I looked at him and I was like, first of all, I want to say, well, fuck you. Like, fuck you first and foremost. But I was like, I'm not going to do that. So I went into the next room and I never went back. I actually really never went back. And I never really spent a lot of time anymore. And it really changed. That it was a massive click in my head. Massive click. Because if you had known me 10 years ago, you would never in a million years think I would turn out to be the fucking bitch I am today.
I don't think you're not a bitch, not at all.
No,
you own who you are.
Yeah.
And I think to be a woman in our community, to be like the rebel. I always call Leo the rebel wife. And I tell her, like, own it. It's who you are.
Yeah.
Own it. Like, wear it like your second skin.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly who you are. That's how you've empowered yourself.
Exactly. Because I do have the title of basically the rebel wife in the community back at home. And it's because I don't do the normal stuff, wife's duties. I don't care for it. I don't, you know, you tell me to do something, I will do the opposite. Like, leave me alone. I am my own woman. I will travel. I will do whatever I want. I do not need to ask you or anyone what I want to do. So when that experience happened, I really felt like my voice was just taken away from me, as if someone has stuck their fingers down my throat and took my voice.
Yeah.
And I was 20. I was in uni. I wasn't a child. You know, these are not topics that you're having with a child. You know, this is not the time for canon. Like, we're in the 20th century. And I changed overnight. I became more confident, and I started saying no. And that has really led...
Imagine being a woman in our community and saying no.
Exactly. I just started saying no and started having conversations with my husband about the things that I do not want to do. Husmet was out of the question. And it was very much an agreement of, if I'm going to do Husmet at your house, you better be doing Husmet at my parents' house.
How did that go down?
Well, he said, I'm never going to do that. And I said, well,
there you go.
Case closed. Just changed myself overnight. Got more respect, got more fear. People started fearing Leo because they started closing their mouths and not saying stuff to my face because they knew the pushback that they were going to get.
When you say stuff, do you feel like it was not just any old opinion, but do you mean like more misogynistic stuff?
Yeah, more misogynistic stuff, like ti e martutasht, like pse nuk e bën këto, dosh me shku mas burrit,
pse s'ke
bo fëmijë, pse nuk rën te vjeria ma shumë, pse like çaj e trosh, pse si nrish dhamt, like I ke bo 30 vjet, kur do me bo fëmijë, just like the amount of times someone has asked me why you don't want to have kids, I could have been a millionaire.
I can imagine.
And a lot of people don't understand, and I guess my mum's kind of has stopped. She's just stopped asking me questions about, you know, kids because I've told her point blank, you're never getting a child from me. She always says, oh, scomme dick. And I was like, well, you're going to live thousands of years then because it's not happening.
Yeah.
But my in-laws, each time I go, they always ask. And at some point I just said, I don't want, if you can't live with that, that's your problem. I do not want any. I don't care about lineage. That is not my responsibility. My body, my choice. And I think also, I mean, a few years ago, I struggled with the acceptance of the fertility issues that I've got because of PCOS. And it was difficult. It was so difficult. I was, you know, in my mid-20s. I did want to try and have kids and I couldn't. And I was like grieving the whole thing. Now I'm over it. And now I'm just like, cool beans, like it is what it is. I'm not sad about it. I've accepted it.
Yeah.
And the worst thing with that is when you've got people constantly asking you, when are you having kids? When are you having kids? Oh, hide
always putting it on you as well. Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's as if like you, the woman, the wife, you would have kids.
Exactly. Like, bruv, do I look like a god to you?
Yeah.
Do I look like a
like
lorp?
The thought of not having a child in our community is like alien, completely alien.
Yeah. It's almost as if they think marriage equals children. And if you don't have children, I think in their eyes...
What are you worth?
Yeah.
What are you worth? If you don't have children, you're not married in our community, what are you worth?
Yeah. And I think in their eyes, it's also why are you married? And it's also...
God, isn't that wild? Like you couldn't just marry just because you love your partner and you want to be with them. I've never actually... the way you just put it, that's just like...
Yeah. Yeah, what's the point?
Yeah.
Because for them, it's like...
a lost concept, isn't it? And I get it, like, especially for the older generation, the partnerships that they've had. It was purely to get married and have
Game of Thrones, basically. It's Game of Thrones.
Has anyone ever compared Albanians to the Game of Thrones?
Just Game of Thrones.
You heard it here first on Trime. Do you know what's funny? Because as I'm listening to you, you just reminded me this memory that I have of what happened. I think I got married to my ex-husband in 2019. Yes, 2019. And this was the day before we got married. So the people who are in my life now haven't really spent much time around me, my family, or me, other Albanian community members. But this was like the first time that one of my friends had actually seen me interact with my family. And I can't remember we were all getting ready to drive to the venue. Anyway, my brother came in, my mum came in, and my brother sat down. I'm the eldest and I've got two younger brothers. This is my middle brother. Well, my middle brother's Hasret, like he is the golden child.
Yeah.
Every family has one. My brother's that. Can do no wrong. Like, do you know what I mean? Like everything literally. He does is brilliant.
A bit mad and it's like, bravo, Dioliam.
Yeah, literally.
Like.
Literally. I don't know. I love my brothers. Like, I love them so much. But we always joke, like, Sarkosh Hasret. He's a Hasret. Like, anyway, so he's come and he sat down in the kitchen, on the kitchen table, and he's like, I'm hungry. And my immediate thing was, whatever I was doing, I got up to go and make him something to eat, gave back to him, and came back, gave it to him. I know last episode we spoke a lot about the eldest daughter syndrome. So as we said, that follows us around wherever we go. Anyway, I did it, whatever, gave him his food. And my friend just looked at me and went, why did you do that? That's not you. You would never. Why did you do that? Why did you literally just got up, stopped what you were doing and served your brother? She was like, who are you? Because all of my friends know me as like the feminist, and even back then, even though I was with a perpetrator of domestic abuse, I was still very much like enthralled in my feminism and all of that. And so my friend was shocked. She was like, I never knew you had this side to you. I was like, well, it's just what it's like in our culture. And that's how I used to think. And that was only 6 years ago. And now my mentality is completely different. Obviously, that's why we're here doing Trime, because we should be breaking those cultural barriers. Like we should be breaking those expectations of women. And it's funny because when we say in our community about the women's role and her expectations in the family, it is very much to rear children. And now it's go to work, come home, look after your kids, cook, clean, do all of the homemaking, and also go to work. Insane. Like the expectations we put on women is just
It's like having 4 jobs in one.
It's crazy.
And never having a break.
But you only get paid for the one you actually get paid for, like you actual work. You don't get paid for being a mum. You don't get paid for being a homemaker, a cleaner, and all of that. So when, obviously, because our experiences are so different in terms of having children, you know, you've got to a point where you've accepted, like, I'm not going to have children. It's fine. Cool. I've made my peace with it. But then when I had a kid, I was completely outcasted, you know?
Yeah.
We have so much adoration for children in our community, right? We adore them, and we make sure they're safe, and we look after them. But yet we're so cruel to the mums.
Yeah.
We're so cruel about the expectations that we have of the women and the mums in our community who are pregnant with these kids and who are giving birth, risking their lives to have children, because giving birth, having a baby, is life-threatening. You literally have to risk your life to give birth.
Yeah. I think it really comes down to how most households, how they treat the mum in the family, the main woman, whether that is a
I guess,
whether that's a grandparent, whether that's your mum, your sister, the main woman that runs that whole household. And it comes down to how her partner treats her, and it comes down to how her father-in-law treats her, because let's face it, most Kosovan couples in Kosovo, and also I've seen in diaspora, live with their in-laws. It comes down to the male figures in that household, and then the woman figures. I'm not saying all men, I'm not saying that, but I am putting the blame there, because if you had a household where you as a dad showed how to treat a woman, your son would be treating his wife like that. We see day in and day out men, young couples, young men treating their wife like trash, like absolute trash. You have to look after my mum. You have to look after my dad. You are now married into my house. You are part of my family. You are this. Like, I have to look after my parents. I'm so fucking fed up. I'm fucking fed up.
I guess for you as well, because you are still very much your lifestyle's completely different to mine. So you know, you're married to an Albanian man, so your lifestyle is very much centered around the culture and the community, whereas mine is different. Like, I'm not with, my partner's not Albanian, my partner's not a man, so it's a completely different experience that I have, and I'm removed from that part of the culture, if that makes sense. And so when I hear you say that, sometimes I'm like, God, does this still happen?
Yeah.
Like, I know it does, don't get me wrong, but I think because my lifestyle is so far removed from it, there are times that when we're talking about it, I'm like, this is still the
happens.
way it is. And we were talking the other day with the ambassador, and he was very frank with this, and he said, you know, a lot of people have this mentality that Kosovo is Pristina or Albania is Tirana, and it's not.
No.
Like, most of our people, they don't live in the capital city. A lot of them live rurally or in smaller towns, and that's where they're experiencing. Just because Pristina and Tirana might seem very progressive and, you know, they are looking towards the future, that doesn't mean that the rest of Kosovo is like that. That definitely doesn't mean that the rest of the diaspora is like that. And that was a really important point that he made, because we see in the comments time and time again, this doesn't happen in my family. Oh, this doesn't happen. And it's like, just because it doesn't happen to you and your family does not mean that it's not happening to other people. Because we know, we've spoken about the statistics and the research. We know that 58% of women in Kosovo were victims of domestic abuse and violence in their lifetime. We know that 52% of Albanian women were victims of violence and abuse in their lifetime.
Yeah, we know it. The data doesn't lie.
Yeah, the data doesn't lie.
Can you just imagine all the women that, for example, can't even leave the house?
Oh yeah,
because
they don't
have
access, for example, to economically, like to telephone, or to they can't get into the closest city, the closest town. Yeah, absolutely,
exactly.
And I think it's so ignorant to say this doesn't happen. It's so privileged as well. It's such a privileged mindset to say that this doesn't happen. You can't tar everyone with the same brush, when you're lucky that actually it hasn't happened to you. You're really fortunate that it hasn't happened. That means that you have the bare minimum of what every single human being deserves in their life, which is safety.
Exactly. And it's interesting because, I mean, I've told you, you know, my family, we're about 600 people, and 80 to 90% are exactly what's wrong with Albanian mentality. You know, they follow through those really, you know, backdated traditions. You know, you get married, you go to in-laws' house. You get married, you have to have kids. You have to, you know, quit your job. The boy you have to look after the boy's parents. You have to ask permission from the boy's parents to go to your own family. That happens a lot in my family. I'm talking about 500 to 600 people in the family. If it happens to my family, I can guarantee you it happens 1 in 2.
Oh, but the thing is there's just no, I don't see what we get out of being willingly ignorant.
No, exactly. Nothing.
What do we get out of that? Nothing otherwise, other than just staying in that cycle, that same cycle over and over again, and then doing nothing to support Albanian women to safety.
Yeah. And also saying, oh, we have a 50-50. You can never have a 50-50.
You can't be 50-50. I've always said this. I will die on this hill. You cannot be a heterosexual partnership can never be 50-50.
No.
I'll tell you why. Because it's not the man that can actually be pregnant and have the children.
No.
It's simple. You can't be equal to your wife.
Simple.
It's impossible for you to be.
Women think differently. Women multitask. Women have 10 thoughts in their head at once. Men, they're lucky that they can just walk straight. Because men are so narrow thinkers. They just think about one thing at a time.
This is the kind of shit that gets us viral, for fuck's sake.
But it's true. Yeah. And it's not to bash men. It's a biological fact. It's nothing against them. It's how they have been created. It is what it is. It's their biological DNA.
Do you think that, or do you think this is just the narrative we've been fed in a patriarchal society?
No, it's not that I think that, it's that I've done research about it.
Interesting.
So,
tell me more.
Scientists are speaking about how women can create lists in their head for the next day. And they also go through what they've done during the day. And they also have mum guilt because they always think,
I hate that word, mum guilt.
Yeah. Oh. Has my daughter eaten enough? Were they cold? Were they this? Were they that? And that's how a mum thinks. Whereas a dad thinks about one thing, finishes that thought, thinks, and then goes to the next.
I need to start thinking like dads. I need to start thinking like dads, basically.
And that's scientifically how a man works, whereas a woman is literally created to multitask, and a man is created to take the brunt of the struggle, the brunt of like the financial struggle, to care for his family, like, so the woman has time to care for the kids. But that's non-existent.
Yeah.
No, because you were telling, oh, ti dush me dal me punu, me prush pare të shtëpia, me jap mu. Bro, fuck off, first of all. Second of all, if I'm working, then you better get a nanny, because why am I...
Yeah, because why am I then carrying the load of the household? Why?
Exactly.
And this is where when I say this thing about, people think, you're a feminist, why do you not believe in equality? Of course I believe in equality. That's why feminism started in the first place. But what I'm saying is, when there is so much inequality between men and women, you have to look at, okay, then how do we make this fair? How do those who have so much privilege use their privilege to help those who are victimized?
Exactly.
And in the sense of feminism, we're talking about women. And if we're going to look at it intersectionally, then we're talking about marginalized women, or the global majority women. So people from our ethnicity, we're talking about South Asian cultures, we're talking about black women, we're talking about all these women who are brutally victimized. Yeah. A, because they're a woman, and then B, because of their ethnicity, and more so because of their ethnicity, right? So when there is a lack of inequality, so we're looking at inequality, then what do? We have to create equity between men and women some way, somehow in society, so that men are using their privilege and their power to help women, to help elevate them, to help amplify them, instead of being their oppressor.
Exactly. And the first thing they can do is spend a week with their child and see if they can survive it, first of all.
That's not even something that's great.
No.
You're a parent. You should do that.
But that, it you know what? It baffles me. It absolutely baffles me, because I see it day in, day out. I've got friends, I've got family, and I see it day in, day out. The woman is always the one taking care of these kids. Did you have this child by yourself? Did you magically find thousands of pounds and go and get IVF and have a sperm donor? Or did you do the natural thing and two of you did the deed to create that child? Because if two can do the tango, it takes two to do the tango. both of you did the tango, both of you have to do the tango for the rest of your life.
The rest of your life. Absolutely.
If one of you can't do it, if the dad can't do it, then you should not be having kids. It's as simple as that. You shouldn't first of all be getting married because you're still a boy, still stuck at your mum's tit, first of all. Second of all, you're just not a man. You're just not a man. You're not a man.
Oh my God.
Sorry, but I have to, because I think I'm passionate, and I'm trying not to be too harsh, but I'm passionate.
You are passionate, and that's okay to be passionate about this, because it's something that has affected you so deeply. You know, it's something that you fought against your whole life.
Yeah, it's tiring. It was tiring. But again, I'm so privileged, and I guess lucky to have a partner like I do, a partner that listens, because there are so many marriages that the husband doesn't listen. They see their wife as a means to an end, instead of actually seeing them as a life partner and making them a best friend and consulting with them on all decisions and actually creating a future together. I think we're really stuck. The Albanian mentality is really stuck in the old ways of trying to preserve the culture, which, you know, our culture is amazing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Our culture is amazing.
And the thing is we absolutely can preserve it, and it deserves to be preserved. It's a beautiful culture, it's a beautiful heritage we have. These violent practices, the misogynistic practices, don't belong in our culture. It's not culture.
No.
Let's just call it for what it is. It's misogyny, it's violence. That doesn't belong anywhere in the world.
No, exactly. And men need to stop fearing the voices of their partners. You will only oppress someone because you are scared of what
they can
achieve. You would never oppress someone because you just felt like it. It's you oppress someone because of the thought of what they could achieve, the thought of them being better than you. And instead of thinking, you know what, my wife is better than me. She is better than me. She is amazing. She is the boss bitch. She is, you know, without her, I'd be lost.
Yeah.
Just honouring that. Because
absolutely. And if we're talking about like our heritage and how beautiful our culture is, a lot of it is about honour.
Yeah.
And we can absolutely use that part of our, you know, culture in a really good, wholesome way. We absolutely can.
Of course we can. I mean, you know, to take an example of a great woman that lived in the Albanian community is Mother Teresa. She did so much. And she didn't do it in Albania. She went to Asia.
She did it all over the world.
You know, she did it all over the world. And she was so strong in her message, and she never, ever wavered in her message, ever. And we have statues of her. We learn about her. We learn about her in the UK, let alone in Albania.
Everyone knows who she is worldwide.
Exactly. Why can't we show the same love and affection and respect to our partners?
Absolutely.
Because a woman that is treated well, a woman that is honoured, a woman that is empowered will always give back to you and never leave you behind. As if a woman is successful, you will be as successful, because a woman doesn't let people they love behind.
Yeah, they simply don't. And when I was growing up, right?
Yeah.
And I know this very much has a lot to do with my childhood and the way I grew up and what I witnessed and, you know, all of that. I always thought I was so disconnected from my identity because of what happened in my home.
Yeah.
And then so disconnected because I didn't have Albanian friends at school.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to connect to the community. I didn't know how to connect to the culture and all of that. So growing up, I was always like, I'm not going to have kids. I don't want to have kids. I don't want to have kids. Why would you put yourself in this position to have kids? Anyway, in the end, I did have a child with my ex-husband, and there were many forms of like coercive reproduction. And that's a lot of the time when women are in relationships with perpetrators, with abusers, they do find themselves having children as a result of that kind of coercive control. So I have a child. It wasn't that I always thought, I'm dying to be a mum. Oh my God, I've got all of these maternal. I had no maternal instinct, none. And you know how women talk about, oh, look, as a baby, it's so cute. I never get that. I don't get that. I never had it. But obviously I have my daughter, and it's only now at the age of 35 that I've started to be like, I actually do think I want to have a child. But it's only now in where I am in my life, that says a lot about my life state and the safety that I have, and especially with Danielle, that's to do with who I am now.
Yeah.
And it took me to the age of 35 to actually be like, actually, I really would love to have a baby.
Yeah.
And now that I am in a relationship with a woman, I realised that actually maybe it wasn't that I didn't want to have children. Maybe it was because I just didn't ever want to have children with a man.
Yeah.
I do think, like, saying this about how I feel about myself, right? And, you know, talking about how much coercive reproduction happens in relationships with abusers. I do wonder how many women in our community have also been a victim of that too. And then also, it's not just the perpetrator that they're living with, it's also the wider community. It's the in-laws, it's your own parents, it's everyone else around you that's constantly bashing you with when you're going to have kids, you need to have kids, you have to have kids, as if like that's the only thing you should be doing with your life.
And it's not even just that, but if you have a daughter first when you're having a son, and if you
it's just never good enough,
and then if you have a son first when you're having a daughter second, but as long as you've got a son, it's fine.
I'm really open on this podcast about all that indoctrinated misogyny. There's a lot of us that are moving through our community and through life that have that. Now, when I say that indoctrinated misogyny, for me, it's not something that I impose on another woman.
Yeah.
I imposed it on myself.
Yeah.
So when I was pregnant with Bella, I was like, I want this baby to be a boy.
Because it comes, it's naturally, subconsciously.
It directly came from growing up, constantly hearing, do you know what I mean? And so when I went to my gender scan with Bella and they said it was a girl, I was like, oh, really? I'm not having a boy? And I was someone who was so far at that point, I was completely outcasted from the community. I didn't have any of those links. But that indoctrinated misogynistic thinking was still there.
How sad is that?
And I think there needs to be like this recognition that so many women in our community do have that. It doesn't need to be perpetuated onto other people. It doesn't need to be projected onto other people. We project it onto ourselves. And that's where it's like the most deeply depressing part I find of, what I used to have of my identity was that misogynistic thinking that I had. I need to be this kind of wife. I need to have this, right?
100%. And I think once you understand why they want a son so bad, and once you understand why there's this obsession with it, which really comes down to, like I said, like taking it from an episode of Game of Thrones, it's all about lineage, it's all about power, it's all about money, it's all about the idea that a girl will be married off to the son-in-law, will take the son-in-law's name, and that is her identity. Anything that we give to the daughter will automatically be the son-in-law's, which actually factually is not correct, legally or in any shape or form. But there's just one thing that I wanted to bring to light. Because we always speak about kids, and I'm like, if God blesses me with a child, I want it to be a girl. I don't care. A girl. And it's purely because of the standing of women in Islam.
Wow.
A girl is seen as you are blessed by God himself. A girl is having a child, a daughter, is seen as a higher blessing than having a son. That does not mean that your son is a piece of shit. That just means that just means that the value that a daughter gives to the father, first of all, a daughter opens the gates of heaven in Islam for a father if he treats her well, looks after her and raises her in Islam. But a daughter is seen so high ranking. And the reason it came about is because during the time when Islam was coming about, they used to bury daughters alive and they used to drown them. And then that's why the passage in the Quran came out, which said basically, if you have one daughter, you're blessed. If you have two daughters, you are blessed. And if you have three daughters, you're the richest man on earth.
And see, there's that. I know you love your faith, right? And I learned so much from you about Islam. We have this, I guess, sometimes this huge misconception about what the Quran actually teaches in terms of the delivery and the message to how to treat women and girls. And we forget that what we see play out in society, in cultures, in communities, is not the religion itself. And this isn't just for Islam, it's for across the board, literally, across religions, right? And it's one of the reasons why I don't practice religion, why I don't believe in religion. And it's the fact that it's not the religion itself or the holy book itself, it's the men perpetrating, it's the men using the books and the religion as a way to manipulate so that they can be violent towards women and girls. And we really need to move away from that mentality of being like, oh, Muslims do this. That I think we need to really acknowledge that it's men doing it. We need to like start taking those blinkers off, like just stop thinking that ignorant, narrow-minded mentality of the world, of how other cultures are, how other religions are. Like, actually open your ears and listen. You have got to listen, like educate yourself. It's just that when it comes to that topic, we 100% need its own episode.
We do
the religion is 100%, because there's so many women that have reached out to us who do practice Islam in our community, and they have spoken about all of the the prejudice that they face, which is so hypocritical, especially us in Kosovo, considering that we are like a Muslim country, but yet when people take the religion and the faith seriously, all of a sudden like everyone looks down on them.
It's a responsibility of our community to make sure that women are respected as best as possible.
Absolutely.
In any
fact, period. Whatever TikTok word you want to bring into this, period.
It's the communities. It's the communities.
It absolutely is
job,
regardless of the religion, regardless of how deep in any faith you are, regardless of whether you believe in religion or not. Exactly. It doesn't matter whether you're living back home or you're in the diaspora. It does not matter.
Exactly.
Fact, it is the community's responsibility.
100%. Because we are all human. We are all equal. None of us are kosh. None of us are kosh.
Absolutely.
We are all human, we are all equal, and we deserve to be treated as such.
Yeah, because we pride ourselves as a community helping each other and making sure no one goes without. And I love that about us. And I've always said that on this podcast. I love that. So one thing I absolutely love about us. So it's also our responsibility to ensure women's welfare and safety. And we're 100%. Not doing that. I'm sorry. I don't care who comes in the comments and says, that's not what we do. Yes, we do. It's there. It's in research. It's in statistics. It's in lived experience. Women are coming forward on the podcast sharing their lived experiences. Like, it's there. This happens.
Yeah. I tell you the amount of times that me and Lejla have cried reading these stories, getting up the courage and being strong to read these stories out is not an easy task to re-traumatize yourself constantly with stories, but we do it for the sake of, we want, first of all, to honor these voices, honor these stories, and make sure that the people that send us these stories, because they've trusted us and they've, we are so honored to just get their voice out. We want their voice to be heard, and that's why we will never stop. We will never stop.
No, not at all. I think until we achieve everything that we wanted to achieve with Trime, which probably will be for the rest of our lives, because it's just so
till the day we go,
literally,
like, adios, I'm dead.
Ingrained in everything that I do now. I live, breathe, sleep it, like absolutely everything. Blood, sweat and tears going into this project. And I think until we reach that point, we're like, oh, we did it. Because for me, I'm always going about there's more we can do.
There's more. It's a continuance. It's a continuance of our hard work. And this is the first step. The first big step was our meeting at the embassy. The first big step. I came out of that and I was like,
I can't. I was a bit like,
what? This? Me?
What do you mean?
Like, who?
I'm just a girl.
How did we get here?
Yeah. We got here because what we're doing is impactful.
Exactly.
What we're doing is needed, desperately needed. And it just further shows that actually our reasoning behind starting the podcast and doing this outreach work was 100% the right thing to do. Exactly. It was the right thing to do, to let people know we're here, and we are really, really needing the community support. Like this thing, these initiatives, these projects, they do not happen overnight. They take years and years. They need funding. They need specialist services. They need people who have that practical experience as well. And if you're out there listening to the podcast and you yourself can support, whether it's financially or you can put us in touch with someone who, you know, has the means to.
Now's the time to really make sure that you are following us. You are keeping up with everything that we're doing, because our next steps that come after this huge
so
community.
important, and we need the community's help and support. Like, you know, the podcast itself will be looking for sponsors. We'll be looking for people who want to partner up with us, who want to team up with us. We have our event coming up in November, Sunday 17th of November at Feather Lounge, which is going to be our first fundraising event. You know, there's so many different ways of how you can get involved, and if these are things that you can't do, keep sharing our podcast, keep sharing the message, keep telling other women that we're here, keep letting them know.
Yeah, because Trime now and forever is here to serve the Albanian women.
Absolutely.
It was always meant to do that, and now 2 months in, we've actually set in stone. Crazy. Even though we can't believe it's only been 2 months.
I know. I can't believe it.
I thought it would take us at least a year to get where we are.
But you know, like when I looked back at the 3-year plan, we've achieved 2/3 of our first year plan already in 2 months.
It's amazing.
That's mental.
I'm so proud of us. I'm so proud of Trime. And I just can't wait to keep going, you know, but we need the community support.
Yeah, because once we make it look, Dan says this all the time, she's like, you guys make it look so easy. I think that people think that this is just an easy thing to do, and it's not.
No.
It's absolutely exhausting, not only just emotionally and physically. We're taking time out of our home lives, our families, and we've got day jobs.
Yeah, and we've had no days off.
Yeah, we haven't had since we started Trime, even before when we were planning and researching, we haven't had a day off in I can't remember how long. So it's exhausting. We can't do this on our own, and we absolutely can't do the resources. We can't without financial resources. We cannot continue doing this work. Like, we absolutely need the support, and that's why it's really important just to keep telling people that we're here, letting them know that we exist, letting them know about our plans. You just never know who has the means to support Trime to get us to the next step.
Exactly, and even if that's just sending your favorite brand our video that you would love to see on Trime, send it.
If you think of someone who's like, this woman would be a great guest on Trime, tell us, tell them, because we really, really want this to continue having this impact that it's already had. And you think of what we've achieved in 2 months, imagine what we can achieve in the months and years to come.